today is really all about thinking about how in our current society, in the current economic climate, we seem to be living in an increasingly risk-averse type of culture. We've gathered together a group of people from across the arts, from healthcare, and a number of different sectors to talk about how they might actually embrace risk as part of their work and creative and professional lives.
Or idea of risk being cultural specific.
Are different art forms or ways of working more or less reliant on risk? It's an interesting question. Something where you're physically exposed to an audience, obviously you have a very emotional engagement. My interest in this conference is very much in terms of the physical risk taking rather than the financial risk of something flopping. But I think any art form has to be absolutely, if you'll pardon the expression, has to be at the cutting edge. In my case, that is the physical risk to a building or to the viewer or to myself from the work.
Any culture which inculcates obedience, even if it's wrapped in coziness, even if it's presented as for your own good, any society which essentially is eroding its younger generation into obedience is creating a very dangerous political template.
Appeared on stage. It's a production in which the dogs are just allowed to move free.
I think that what's happened now, recently, over the last 10, 15 years, is that organisations have to become brands in order to survive. So the organisation is what minimises the risk. So for example, let's just say, after the reopening of the Royal Court Theatre in 2000, it became a really nice posh place to go, and the theatre itself became a brand, so that people are going to trust that brand. They're going to be much more likely to buy tickets to whatever is on at the Royal Court because it's the Royal Court. I would venture to say that theatre complicity has shored itself up against risk by achieving a similar sort of status. And I think organisations have to do this now in order to survive. The organisation itself has to be the attractive thing that enables them to put in risky product that may not work because they know that the organisation itself will survive.
Within today's context, I'm playing a short set of completely improvised music, so there is a fair element of risk there, I suppose, in that I've no idea what I'm going to play. But this is a huge part of my practice. I do a lot of gigs with solo gigs and also with other musicians where we have no predetermined material whatsoever. So there's a real element of trust within the process of allowing yourself to be open to hear the music and to hear where it wants to go. So I guess I don't really feel that there's that much risk involved in that, because I've kind of practiced to a level of where I have 100% commitment within the moment. So I think the risk is that I'm not committed. If I'm not committed to being fully involved in the making of the music, then that's where the risk of failure comes in, I think.
We were talking in our discussion group about risk aversion due to kind of litigious society, but actually in mental health often the people who trickle down at the bottom, who feel they have no control over their life, who have perhaps stopped taking positive risks in their life, perhaps are those people who end up on the street. They're not the ones that are going to sue, they are the masses that we fail as a society. So how important creativity and creative risk taking might be to that particular community.
a place like Christchurch.
You know, centuries ago, and finally became public bodies more recently.
A bit more money to distribute. So actually, I would
weren't occupying those seats because they've seen Bowen a gazillion times. What you're creating an audience for is opera in cinemas.
Really glad that we could be here today. It's really amazing that there's such a range of speakers. I think it's great that we've got cross disciplines here, and I'm really surprised by some of the things that have come out already. So looking forward to the afternoon.
that we articulate our expectations for our audience attendances very carefully to help us.
My name's Sally Taylor and I'm the Executive Director of the Culture Capital Exchange, and we are a membership organisation of universities in London working between higher education and the cultural and creative industries in London, and we have similar sorts of relationships as Opera North and the University of Leeds, and except most of them are on a much smaller scale than that, but our job is to build sustainable relationships between our universities and the cultural and creative industries in London, and I'm really, really pleased to be here today, and I'm very impressed by the breadth of places that the speakers have come from.
I'm hoping that conversations will be started today which will lead to people developing their thinking further, maybe developing creative projects, maybe developing programs of work or ideas to take forward.
And the consumer or the participant or the audience makes the decision about it.